The connection that Jedi and Sith have with their lightsaber crystals is a very important one. As we'd covered multiple times in multiple holocrons, it resonates with their very spirits, and the lightsaber crystal is imbued a color that represents one's stance in the Force itself. Some turn green and blue, rare ones turn purple, and in the cases of the Sith, these lightsaber crystals turn red. However, acolytes of the Force, we have made an interesting discovery and a massive connection between the lightsaber crystals of Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker that say so much about who they are as people, beyond simply the coloration of the blade, but facts that speak to a deep history and connection between Luke Skywalker's lightsaber crystal and Darth Vader's. Let us begin. First though, according to our analytics, many of the individuals that visit our archives have yet to join our order, causing a great disturbance in the Force. So if you've enjoyed our daily holocron openings, reach out and force crush that subscribe button. It is your destiny. The connection that Luke Skywalker's lightsaber crystal and Vader's lightsaber crystal have is that they are actually completely different, not only meaning that they are different crystals entirely, but meaning that they are made of different things. This is the Legends lore explanation. In Legends continuity, the Sith typically make what is known as synthetic lightsaber crystals, and they do not venture to Ilum to find lightsaber crystals or imbue upon them most of the time, and rather solely utilize these synthetic crystals in the continuity of Legends. In fact, it was a synthetic crystal that was granted to Darth Vader by Darth Sidious. It is unknown when the Sith and other darkside groups began using synthetic crystals, though red crystals have been in use since the days of the old Sith Empire, with notable wielders such as Karnus Mur and his followers wielding such synthetic weapons. However, at the time, most Sith wielded Sith swords rather than lightsabers, though red lightsabers would become the standard weapon after the reformation of the Empire. The first Sith follower to take up a red-bladed weapon before the resurgence of the Old Empire was the Dark Jedi Hazen. The primary reason for the usage of synthetic crystals among the Sith Order and other Darksiders was the need to stay hidden, as most of the sites where natural crystals that were suitable for lightsabers could be gathered were frequented by the Jedi Order. Eventually, synth crystal usage among such orders became a tradition, with most members considering the creation of a synthetic crystal superior to the more passive Jedi method of gathering the natural formations, which was looked on as relying to the untamed wilds of space to provide, rather than a Sith going out and creating a path of their own. In fact, synthetic crystals creation was viewed by Darksiders to being a sign of greater mastery of the Force, dominating the Force and using it to your own wills rather than the whims of space. Conversely, the Jedi frowned on the creation and use of synthetic crystals among their initiates, associating this with taking the quick and easy path, as they believed they should rely on crystals found naturally. However, sometimes Jedi were forced to create synth crystals when a weapon was needed and no naturally occurring crystals were accessible. The most notable example of this is in fact Luke Skywalker in Legends. Luke Skywalker was unaware of the existence of naturally occurring kyber crystals, not to mention the fact that the Empire had gathered up many of the crystals and actually purged Ilum of nearly all of them. Therefore, Luke was forced to create his own crystal, a synthetic one. However, he had to go through a rigorous process to change the color. Luke was able to gather most of the parts he required to build his weapon from various vendors in the city of Mos Eisley, including a high-energy reflector cup, power cells, and a focusing lens. However, Luke was unable to obtain one vital component that would bring the whole project together: the lightsaber crystal. In the years following the Galactic Empire's establishment in 19 BBY, great efforts were taken to expunge the last remaining resources of the fallen Jedi Order from the galaxy. One of these measures was the banning of all crystals capable of being used in the construction of lightsabers, and shutting down the sites that possessed these crystals. Possessing lightsabers was also outlawed with the exception of Palpatine himself, Vader, and the Emperor's Shadow Guards, as well as the Emperor's hands. Others who possessed lightsabers collected them as trophies from fallen Jedi. Due to this, Luke was forced to fabricate his own green synthetic lightsaber crystal using a small blast furnace and a book of instructions found within the home of his fallen master, Obi-Wan Kenobi, on Tatooine. For many days, Luke labored over the components, checking and then rechecking the instructions many times, taking no shortcuts. Over a month after he first began the construction, the weapon was still not complete. Luke had to interrupt his work on a project while he and his friends mounted an ultimately unsuccessful rescue of Han Solo from the bounty hunter Boba Fett. However, Luke later returned to his work on the weapon, cutting and shaving the unrefined crystals he had created in a proper multifaceted lightsaber jewel. He likewise based his lightsaber on Ben Kenobi's lightsaber in memory of his mentor. Now obviously there is a ton of great symbolism here. Luke Skywalker is a product of the dark side of the Force because of his father, Anakin. Darth Vader, now a Sith Lord, is reflected in Luke Skywalker's very lightsaber through symbolism. It is because Luke Skywalker essentially originates from the dark side that he uses what would normally be a Sith technique to construct his lightsaber. However, it does not end here, and this isn't just the only connection that Luke has to the Sith and his father, but rather, there is a massive one with Darth Vader. Earlier in our holocron, we stated that Palpatine gave Darth Vader a synthetic red lightsaber crystal when he became a Sith Lord, as per tradition of the Sith Empire. However, there is another piece to this lore that we have omitted. The fact that following many years of use, Darth Vader, the man who was formerly Anakin Skywalker, decided to switch out his synthetic red blade with a natural Adegan crystal, something that would have been considered heresy by the Sith Empire, and something that's actually a Jedi tradition. But what exactly is an Adegan crystal, and why did Darth Vader decide to switch his out? Adegan crystals were a subset of kyber crystals commonly used by Jedi as a main component of their lightsabers. These rare, force-reactive stones were primarily found in the Adegan system, though a fair amount of these crystals could also be found on the planet of Halm. Other locations where the Adegan crystals could be found included even Mygito and parts of the Coloran system asteroid belt. The Force shared a special connection with the Adegan crystals, and it was through their use that the Jedi created a bond amongst themselves, the Force and their weapon itself. The trait caused the Adegan crystals in a lightsaber to give off a weak Force signature that could actually be sensed by a Jedi. What's unique about an Adegan crystal is the vast majority of lightsaber crystals from Ilum were green and blue, and though they were not connected to the Force like the Adegan crystals were, all of them had their special properties that made for the ideal Jedi weapon. As an interesting side note, Obi-Wan Kenobi found and used an Adegan crystal in his first lightsaber that he would lose to Maul. Unfortunately for us, in Legends continuity, there's never a clear explanation as to exactly why Darth Vader decided to switch out his synthetic crystal for an Adegan crystal. However, based around what an Adegan crystal actually was, we believe that we have the answer. First things first, one of the rarest colors for an Adegan crystal is red, and it could be for this reason that Darth Vader decided to replace the synthetic crystal with the Adegan crystal simply due to its rarity. However, what this crystal represents is far more important to the lore, as again, an Adegan crystal and using naturally occurring crystals is strictly a Jedi tradition, and again, the Sith looked down on this. This means though, that Darth Vader very much had properties and beliefs of the Jedi that were ingrained in his very being. Perhaps it was the preference that he had gained as Anakin Skywalker, but the similarities between this and Luke are astounding. Luke Skywalker, a Jedi, uses a synthetic crystal that he was forced to create, and Darth Vader Anakin, as a Sith Lord, uses a naturally occurring crystal, a Jedi tradition, and one that the Sith would look down upon. This small distinction shows us where each of these characters have come from and how they have changed over the course of their lives. Their beginnings and origins do not define them, whether they end up for better or for worse. And I believe that this brilliant little detail is absolutely astounding and shows us as fans everywhere that the beginning of our journey certainly does not mark where we will ultimately end. Vader likely switched to the Adegan crystal because that is what he knew as a Jedi. Or perhaps if you want to go really deep, perhaps this is the smallest part of Anakin Skywalker reaching out, grasping that Jedi tradition, as one of the things that I love about Return of the Jedi is the alternate meaning to the title. Perhaps the very title of Return of the Jedi is not in reference to Luke Skywalker, but is in reference to Anakin himself being redeemed and saved by his son. But anyway, my friends and acolytes of the Force, we wanted to highlight this, and we would like to thank Daryl's Designs, who commented about this on our video yesterday concerning Luke and Vader, and how Luke Skywalker's green lightsaber actually prompted Vader to slightly embrace the light side. So thank you again, and thank you to all of you who have stopped by our archives. May the Force be with you, and we hope to see you back here soon.